Hey guys, Becky here with Design Bundles, and I'm super excited to have you join me today because we have a really awesome rhinestone tutorial for you. Let's talk about making our own rhinestone decal. Alright guys, so here we are in Silhouette Studio, and what I've done is I have set up my page and my material size to be 6x6 because that is the size of decal material that I have. And I have imported a Rhinestone SVG file. Now it's very important that you remember that when you import these Rhinestone SVG files that you do not resize them unless you have to. For example, this designer in particular, let me show you. They will provide you with different formats. I use the SVG format because I'm using Silhouette Studio, and I have the Designer Edition upgrade, but if you do not have the Basic Edition, there is the DXF format, and then if you're using a Cricut, there's going to be a different file just because the different software will need to use it a little bit differently. So moral of the story is you want to make sure, and designers are usually aware, you want to make sure if you're using Cricut Design Space that you're sizing this file appropriately, because when you guys import SVG files, that does not usually happen. It does not usually import the correct size. So make sure that you're using the Cricut files, and more often than not, the designers will have the size that you need to size the file for your Cricut. Okay, but we are using Silhouette Studio, so that is one benefit, is that the SVG file size is going to be correct for us. Now this will be fine for how we're going to cut the template material for making our rhinestone decal, but there's a second part that we're going to cut, which is the decal material. Okay, and this will make a little bit more sense, but basically to turn a rhinestone design into a decal, there is a heat safe decal material that we're going to use, and it's super easy. And a lot of the videos that you'll see will show people will just press this on the square and then they'll cut it by hand, but that actually, I'll be honest with you, it rubs me the wrong way. All right, I don't like to cut things by hand. I think it leaves the edges a little jagged, and then for a design like this, I don't really want to just have these random cuts connecting my paws. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the offset tool. Now the downside with the offset tool is it is actually offsetting each one of these little circles, and what we're going to do is really blow this up so that it will smooth out the circles a little bit, and then we're going to use our point editing to simplify. That way it'll smooth out the entire design. This will all make much more sense, I promise. I promise it'll make much more sense in a moment. But I'm going to make my offset anywhere about, the 0.35, 0.4 range will be good. Go ahead and hit apply. Now you do have to be patient with your software during this because it is picking up all those little circles and it may get overwhelmed. Okay, so just have that patience, click apply and then wait for it to do its thing. Don't try to force it. And you guys have to remember that a lot of this depends on the specs of your computer. So certain computers will be able to do this faster, okay? Now you'll notice that I do have my offset, but it's a little bumpy. So I can double click and I can choose simplify, and it will start to smooth out some of these lines. There we go. So that is much, much better. One other thing that I want to do is I want to remove this part right here. So let's release the compound path. I don't actually need that. Okay. But what I can do now is, there's a couple things, but what I like to do is go back and do an internal offset and then start increasing the size on that internal offset until it's a little closer to my design. Now it's not going to fit perfectly. Okay, but I really don't like having a big wide design around my decal. But at least by doing it this way, then I'm going to be able to have a smooth and consistent cut line. Okay, so what we have here, I'm going to fill it in gray. And what we have is we will be able to cut the decal material using the gray file, and then we will cut the rhinestone template using the dotted file, and then we'll combine them together to complete our decal. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about cut settings. So basically over here in the send panel, what we're going to do is we are first going to cut the rhinestone template material. Now there should be a default in here for you, but as I always recommend, make sure that you perform a test cut because it will vary from machine to machine and material to material depending on where you purchase it. So I'm going to select my gray outline and change it to no cut. So basically all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cut out the rhinestone template material. Now what that means is I'm going to use a blade of 6, a force of 33, and a speed of 5. Now I do cut with a ratchet blade, so definitely if you're cutting with an auto blade, like I said guys, make sure you do those test cuts. This is just a material that is actually pretty pricey and is very disappointing to let it go to waste because this is a template that you will be able to use over and over again, okay? So let's go ahead and proceed to cut this design out and then we will move on to the other portion of our cutting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn my gray outline back to cut and I'm going to select my dots and change those to no cut. Now with this, what I'm going to do is just cut the outline of my paw print. All right. I'm still going to leave it at rhinestone template material just because I don't have a default set up for this, but what worked for me the last time I cut this material was a blade of 7, a force of 20, and you can leave it on the speed of 5. So a blade of 7 and a force of 20. Now this, obviously using a blade of 7 and a force of 20 is a pretty, it doesn't feel thick guys, but it's thick to cut. All right. So again, this isn't a cheap material, so I definitely recommend performing your test cuts. But the good news is once you get the test cuts down, this is not an intricate design, so it should cut pretty well for you and cut fairly easily. Now, if you're not comfortable with this part, like I said in the beginning, a lot of the other videos that you'll see, they involve just cutting around your rhinestone design with a pair of scissors. And if you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. All right, it's whatever's going to be easiest and best for you guys. But this is just a way to get a more precise cut. All right, so let's go ahead and perform our test cut and also proceed to cut this material. And then I will show you how to put this project together in the next scene. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what we have here. This is our rhinestone template material. This is a heat safe transfer tape. It is usually sold specifically for rhinestones. If you're ever in a pinch, you can also reuse a clear carrier sheet off the back of your heat transfer vinyl, but this will be much stickier and hold your rhinestones much better, okay? So these are a definite must. Then of course, this is our Rhinestone Decal material. This is our rhinestones. These are the 10SS, and this is our little, often referred to as a rhinestone brush, but I'll be honest with you guys, it's actually one of those little trim paint brushes. They do make larger ones if you do a lot of rhinestones that you can purchase from the rhinestone vendors, but especially if you're just starting out, this works really well and they're very inexpensive. So, one important tip about cutting your rhinestone decal material is always check and make sure before you unload your mat. Okay, very important. Before you unload your mat, check and make sure that you have a good cut. The reason I say that is that rhinestone stuff in particular just doesn't feel very inexpensive. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't other materials that we work with that are a similar price. I'm sure there are, you know, but at the same time, I don't know, it just seems to hurt my feelings more when it is a rhinestone project that I'm working on. Now, I did put glossy side up on my mat. There is a matte side, okay? So the super glossy side facing up. Remember, I did not mirror and I did not mirror, okay? That's very important because that's how you're gonna make sure that your design lines up. So what I'm going to do is, if you remember from our beginner rhinestone tutorials, is these templates are actually very easy to work with as long as you get a really good cut on them. What you're going to do is just actually peel the entire design up and hopefully your circles will stay in place. If your blade starts to go dull, which I guess is what mine is doing, you may have to touch up a little bit by hand just to make sure that all of your holes punch out correctly. But for the most part, it should come out pretty much close to what your rhinestone design would be. And then this is the template that we'll use. Once your template is done, you can stick it to almost any surface. It's not too terribly sticky, but it is sticky enough to stay in place. Now, if you are going to reuse these, especially if you're making any sort of repeat apparel or a logo, or something simple like this being a paw print, very easy to reuse this going forward. So you can put this on a piece of cardboard or chipboard or even cardstock and file it away for use in the future. Now, I got my rhinestones. When you are working with rhinestone templates to fill in like this, I'll be honest with you, the more, the better, okay? Because what you're gonna do, go ahead and pour your rhinestones on, and you can do these little circle motions, and it will slowly fill in your design. Now, this is the part where it's easy to show you why you do not resize rhinestone templates that you purchase. Now, if you are a silhouette user, then guys, you do have the ability to create your own rhinestone designs, which is fabulous. But I'm just wanted to stress that again, because what will happen is these holes will be too small to be able to capture and hold on to your rhinestones. So don't want anybody to have to learn that the hard way. Once your design is filled in, try to get it all the way filled in, but if you're missing one or two spots, that's okay. You can place those by hand. But once your design is filled in, go ahead and try to get the excess rhinestones brushed off. And then I just use a pair of tweezers to grab a stone, or to grab stones that are on there that shouldn't be, place them where they belong. Now, if your rhinestones do not cooperate the first time, that's okay. It is, I don't want to say it's a learned ability. It's just one of those things where practice makes perfect, okay? So definitely the first time that I worked with rhinestones, it was not this easy. As a matter of fact, I swore off rhinestones forever. All right, so let's get these rhinestones out of the way. Now, these are hot fix rhinestones. So what that means is that we need heat to be able to adhere these to our decal material. So what I'm gonna do is this is that clear carrier sheet that I talked about, the adhesive transfer tape. Center it on your design, and I like to let mine bow down in the middle. You really only have one shot at this, so not to intimidate you, but either do it this way or you can start on one side and let it lay down, okay? Whatever you are more comfortable with. Okay, smooth your rhinestones down into place. And then when you peel back, your rhinestone should adhere to your hot fix transfer tape, okay? These are our rhinestones. Ta-da! And then now I can move this template out of the way, like I said, to reuse later if I want to. So let's go ahead and talk about this guy. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay my rhinestones shiny side down. Okay, so the rhinestone part that looks like the rhinestone is on the back side. This is the adhesive, the ugly side, okay? But being the ugly side allows me to see through this template material here and place it down accurately. Okay, once I get this aligned, just kind of press it into place and then you can turn it over. You see where I'm going with this here? So lay it down, make sure that everything stays aligned. Now, one thing that I learned about this material, or rather about adhering rhinestones to this material, is you actually don't need a whole lot of pressure because the heat is going to activate the glue on the back of these rhinestones. And if you put a whole bunch of pressure, then it squeezes the glue out, all right? So heat, yes, pressure, not so much. Still going to cover with my Teflon. And I am going to heat this. The magic number is 335 for 15 to 20 seconds. Okay, let's see. Now, sometimes rhinestones need to cool. That one right there is having a little hard time sticking. All right, so let's let these cool off. Be very careful when you remove that transfer material because you don't want to dislodge any of your rhinestones. Okay, so let's let that cool for a minute. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove this carrier sheet and then we are going to press again from the back side. Now you did see me tack down a couple of loose stones from the front again, but I am applying a little bit of pressure from the backside, still not a whole lot, but I am also using this Cricut pillow underneath. So if you have a little Teflon pillow, then I would use that also. Now remember guys, it is going to be hot. I'm going to flip this over with my tweezers. Okay guys, so this is our Rhinestone Decal. Now you may be asking me, Becky, that's not exactly clear. Well, the good news is that the frosted side that you're seeing is actually from the back side carrier sheet. So once you separate the two, you'll be able to see that it is in fact a relatively clear decal. Of course, you do still have the film. All right, I mean, it's not going to be flawless, but this will go on anything that you would normally adhere permanent adhesive vinyl to, okay? So if you want this for a car decal, if you want to put it on a tumbler, a lot of people use it to decorate their machines. So definitely lots and lots of things that you can do with it. And guys, this is how you make a rhinestone decal. So guys, how did you feel about our rhinestone decal? Now, obviously, I have not decided just yet what I'm going to put this on because we do have one, we'll call him an oversized puppy, okay? But I just know that this is meant to be some sort of decoration for him and my daughter, and I'm going to let her decide where it goes. So, super excited about that because this really opens up rhinestones. Now you don't just have to use them on apparel. You can use them on pretty much any non-porous surface, right? So, super exciting, especially if you're a rhinestone girl like myself. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please make sure you leave those below. I do love to hear from you guys. Don't forget that we do have really great rhinestone tutorials on both beginners with rhinestones and then also setting up rhinestone designs in Silhouette Studio. So both really, really awesome, and they're just really fun to watch. I always like to bring you guys different project inspiration. So I'm going to wrap it up for today, guys, but don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Maybe share this with a crafty friend who also likes rhinestones. If you learned something new, give us a like or a thumbs up. But guys, I just really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming to pay me a visit today, and I'm going to wrap it up again, but we'll see you next time.